One of the new instructors we're working on for another course actually used another Metroid 2 remake the other day in conversation, and they mentioned actually the way that you took boss fights and actually upgraded them. Do you have any examples from that you could walk us through and talk about a little bit and why you made those decisions?
Okay, so boss fights from the original, there's only two.
Hmm?
So this creature here that we're going to be seeing here is Arachnus. This is pretty much like a surprise boss that appears instead of an item. And whenever you try to acquire the item by shooting it, this creature shows up instead, rolling into a ball, and it's like a huge armadillo with claws. Any weapon that you try to use is not going to be effective. You need to find a way to damage it and defeat it. Eventually, players are going to be realizing that the only way to deal damage is rolling into a ball and using these bombs. So it's kind of tricky to just time the detonation of the bombs with this guy getting into range. Um, it's like a tiny puzzle. Uh, I pretty much reinterpreted that into pretty much what would be described as Mega Man Roadmaster. Just one room and interesting, state machine that attacks the player. That's it.
Mhm.
Now, the main solution for trying to damage this thing, any kind of armament that you're going to be using is not going to be making direct damage. It's going to be agitating the creature. At some point, it's going to be getting angry and rolling into a ball and doing this. You have to do this, apply the same solution, laying bombs in the ground to actually make it bounce and make it hit these electrified coils that are on the ceiling. So basically, the main elements are there. You cannot directly damage the creature with your armaments. You can only, manipulate it so it actually starts rolling, and then you use the bombs to defeat it eventually.
Mhm.
Um, then again, it was really fun to actually, create all of these dynamics and figuring out a way to actually not make it, super blatant. So we are going to be using the same solution. This kind of thing requires you to actually have timing, get out of the way when this thing is coming for you, and it's a very different dynamic. And also balancing this thing was a nightmare. It was super hard at first.
Mhm.
So I got a question. How much of was the community involved in these decisions and iterations on these bosses? Right. On Warcraft, I always had the privilege of working with a large number of community members who would then see the boss fights we had built, and we could actively change and iterate on them for almost a month or 2 months before launching them. What was the experience like for you with this?
So basically, when I started making the demos that showcased what the actual contents of the game was, it was more or less roughly one demo per year, and every demo would be adding an extra area. So the first demo would actually feature the first Metroid fight and the first temple, and it will have its own, mini boss fight and all of that. It would be all of the contents.
Mhm.
The next year, I will show up with another demo that has all of that contents and the second area. So you will be able to actually see some differences when things were improved and other things. And I'm getting feedback all the time. I'm watching playthroughs of people that actually try out the demos and taking suggestions. There was a forum that was very active back in the day when forums were the thing.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, there were
So,
about four different demos that showcased the first four areas, and the final stretch was something that was done pretty much with the QA team. There were already volunteers that were donating their time,
mhm.
testing builds all the time, refining, finding things to improve, and suddenly it wasn't that necessary to actually keep showing contents to the people. I really enjoyed every year when people get a nice fresh reaction to things they haven't seen yet. There's jump scares. There's some bosses that suddenly transform into something else, and it was a nice, refreshing surprise because they expected something and something else happened. Nothing. I know it's not that many people that experience that, but I think it's worth it.